Good morning, everyone. Just a second, I will get my screen shared and we will start Sanity Restored Week 1. Okay, so welcome everybody. Sanity Restored is an ADHD parenting cohort where we will cover the basics to get you started after your ADHD diagnosis. So, I have a script because I am Chatty Cathy, ADD over here. So if you see me looking at my notes, please know that it is to keep me on track. So, what's in week 1? Week 1, we are going to cover everything that you need to know about executive functioning. Now, I am the ADHD parenting coach where you do not need a lot of medical jargon and terminology, but this is one that you're actually going to need to keep. And just think of executive functioning as your life skills. And we'll cover all 8 of those in just a moment. All right. So, again, welcome everyone. What is ADHD anyway? First, let me tell you a little bit about me. My name is Danielle Kelly, and 6 years ago, I became an ADHD parent. Well, 9 years ago, I became a parent. 3 years into that, parenting became really challenging for me. I was dealing with problems that my peers were not dealing with. We had a lot of impulsivity. I didn't even know what that was. So, right at that moment, my son's daycare sent home a program that I could join for free that would teach me how to parent better. And I thought, what do I have to lose? That was 6 years ago. And so far, I have not stopped taking parenting courses. I have done positive parenting, which is what that course was, multiple times, many times over, mindful parenting, behavioral parent therapy, and conscious parent coaching, all to help me become a better parent for my child. And I found myself giving advice and helping people along the way. And my coach was like, don't you want to do this for a living? And I was like, is that even possible? And she was like, I mean, you have 6 years of training and you're already out here helping people. Wouldn't you love to get paid for what you already love doing? And I was like, I guess that never crossed my mind before. So now here I am, 9 years after becoming a parent, 6 years after becoming a ADHD parent, and 6 years of training, helping you and also helping who I was back then. So that is why we're starting with the beginning basics, because that part your girl has mastered. So now on to what the heck is ADHD anyway? The basics. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is not just a fancy term for, oh, my kid can't sit still. It's actually a pretty complex situation that involves many other complexities, not just sitting still or focusing. Like I said, my son has combined type. He has the inattentive part and the hyperactivity and extreme impulsivity part. And I'll teach you later on how to train that impulse. But yeah, so if you are finding yourself or your child struggling with meltdowns, social behavior norms, impulsivity, also not being able to sit still and focus, I'm sure all that sounds familiar to you at this point. Next up is what I told you I promised I wouldn't bring, but this is the one thing that I have to bring, the medical jargon, the executive dysfunction junction. And basically what that means is that our children are struggling, right? They are the life skills that your child needs has been hijacked by ADHD. And I say life skills because it is all of that. It is time management, emotional control, self regulation, task initiation, organization, working memory, flexible thinking, and my favorite, impulse control. So when you hear ADHD parents say, man, my child really struggles with outbursts, that's emotional control. Or we did the homework together and my child did not turn it in. That's a little bit of organization, right? Impulsivity for us, we have long ago learned what fast brain was, and that our brain tells us to do something and then we do it and we're like, huh, that wasn't a good idea. It could also be procrastination, which has many facets, but the procrastination part is task initiation. Sometimes we don't feel like we can do it well enough, which is the perfectionism aspect of ADHD. And sometimes we just completely lack the skills or tools to go start the thing. So we're going to cover each of these one by one, and I'm going to give you a little tip. And then at the end of today's workshop, I'm going to give you some homework where you can have the executive function worksheet, which will give you a little bit more in details on each one of these. And you can single out which ones you're struggling with. Some people struggle with all 8. By all means, have at it, work on all of them. But if you really find yourself struggling today with one of those 8 and you want to narrow in on that, that's fine too. Time management and planning. Ooh. And this is wild because have you ever heard someone say, man, I could get that done in about 5 minutes? And you're thinking, girl, it is going to take you at least an hour. That is time blindness. That is a part of ADHD. Or I have myself included, used to be, I'm getting much, much better at it. Or all of my friends are always late. And I'm like, none of us can tell time, but it's because we do not have a concept of time management. Our ADHD or ADD has hijacked that. And we are out here living blind, y'all. We're living blind. So, what can we do about time management? Planning ahead, we're like winging it, but there are many things that you can do for time management. Luckily, we live in a digital age where we have apps, visual schedules, reminders. For your children, I highly recommend a visual schedule to where they can see what's happening and when. You can pair that visual schedule with a little timer. Amazon has some adorably cute ones where you will see that they have an actual countdown. Because again, we don't know what time is. Like, I'm not kidding you. You will learn this so quickly. But seeing the counter, like they have the little cloud and a rainbow one where the rainbow disappears, that's how much time you have left. Or, like I said, they have tons of cute ones. They have a little spaceship that'll count down the time, the rocket time, just to let them know this little block is how much time you have until we have to move on to our next task. You'll find that helpful for sure coming up. The next one on our list is emotional control. This one was challenging for me and mine. It's a doozy, right? It is like riding a roller coaster with no seatbelt. Your child's emotional regulation is all over the place. One minute they are fine, the next minute they are spiraling. And sometimes it is like you don't see what has happened in between them being happy and being sad. I'm going to give a personal example that I did not plan on adding here. But yesterday, me and my son was playing video games, and one of the segments in the video game was hard for him. And it didn't seem like, that ginormous to me, but this one thing defeated him and it sent him spiraling. And I was like, over a video game? Now I'm 9 years into this. So even I had to sit there for a minute and was like, this meltdown is probably not over the video game. So I'm like, hey, buddy, what's going on? What else is happening? It seems like you're frustrated over this video game, but I sense that's not all that's going on. And he was like, Dad wants me to be perfect, and I feel this pressure, and here I'm not even able to finish this video game. And I was like, So that's kind of our job to dig down and find out what's happening, right? But Your job as the parent is to stay calm. For one, stay calm in that moment. We don't need two emotionally dysregulated people in the mix. Mom stays calm, dad stays calm. We do a little bit of digging, we find out what's going on, we get some emotional reassurance. To build emotional control, you kind of need to work backwards, right? You cannot teach in that moment. You cannot help them in that moment. You kind of let them have to feel that, right? But say at the end of the day, you are laying down, you've read a book together, and you do a recap. Excuse me, where you say, earlier today, mom did not handle this situation the way I would have liked to. If I had the opportunity to do that again, I would. Is there anything from today that you might want to do better next time? And you can get the ball rolling with some personal examples. I'm sure we all have stuff we want to do better. But just open the floor to let them know, for one, nobody's perfect. Two, mom or dad has things that we also want to work on. And if you, like, say my son wanted to label that tantrum, he wanted to handle that better, mom can help you with that. I also highly recommend some CBT games. One that comes to mind is Don't Go Bananas, available on Amazon. Also, CBT 123, which is basically a game where you're learning emotions. You're learning your own emotions and you're getting tips or in real time insight on how to handle those. Again, not when anybody's mad. We're not doing it when anyone's mad, but we definitely are doing it after the fact or preemptively. Self regulation. Which is hard for me, right? Because as an adult who has ADD, possibly ADHD, I feel like I am supposed to be out here guiding this tiny human through these huge emotions. And I feel like I just got a grip on all of mine about 4 years ago, which is good. Maybe it gave me time to work on my crap before I have to help him with it. So let's talk self regulation. This is your child's ability to monitor and adjust their behavior in real time. Imagine trying to drive a car with no brakes. Yeah, that's basically what self regulation feels like for children with ADHD. When that executive function is hijacked, they have no control. Whether it is like blurting something out in class and you're like, shouldn't have said that. Or the urge to resist, binging YouTube or Netflix when you should be working on something else. Self regulation. With practice, this is another executive function that can be trained. And we actually started very early with this. What I did when my son was very little and did not understand what ADHD was, we labeled it fast brain. And we would say, me being the example, oh, I made a fast brain decision. After the fact at first, right? You catch yourself doing something that you shouldn't have done, and you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. That's a fast brain decision, to where eventually we're going to label it beforehand and regulate that. And that would look something like my son would come to me and say, Mom, I almost made a fast brain decision, but I didn't. As with that example, or any win in ADHD parenting, you are going to celebrate that. You are going to praise that. You are going to flood them with positive reinforcement, and you are going to get more of whatever you are praising. So, in those moments where my son was able to articulate, Mom, I almost made a fast brain decision, but I didn't. Let's celebrate that win. So, that's just one small way you can start training self regulation. And yes, it starts with noticing what you've done after the fact. You may have noticed some adults in your life say, man, something comes in here and it comes out here, and I don't have a filter. That filter is self regulation. That filter is is executive functioning. And that lack of it is probably ADD or ADHD. Executive function breakdown, task initiation. This is that procrastination part. And this one is tricky because parents will come to me and say, man, my kid just procrastinates so much, like puts things off. And that could be this for an ADHD brain. Starting a task seems like, climbing Mount Everest, right? Possibly with no gear, but the thought of beginning the task can seem overwhelming, right? But when I dug down a little deeper with my kid, it wasn't necessarily that the task seemed so large. It was that if I start the task, it won't be good enough. So let's start with the easy one first. To get your child to be able to initiate tasks, we're going to break it down. And you are going to be so tired of hearing people say, break it down, break it down, break it down. But really, like, break it down. And I'm talking about maybe one step today, maybe one step in the morning and one step in the evening, and then work on it so on in small chunks for however long it takes. Yes, break it down so that you or your child can feel in control of, I just have this tiny piece to do today. All over the internet, there is the 2-minute rule, where if you work on something for 2 minutes at one time, your brain thinks, I can do this for 2 minutes. But the amazing part is that once you are working on it for 2 minutes, you probably won't want to stop, or you'll be so proud of yourself or proud of what you have accomplished in 2 minutes. You're like, girl, let's go 2 more minutes. That's a win, right? The other part of that is perfectionism, and that is not easy to break it down. I can tell you so many things to help you, like with executive functioning, but when your child has that perfectionism part where they're like, Mom, what if it's not good enough? And I'm like, what if it is? Like, what if you do it and it's the greatest thing you've ever done and you're so proud of yourself? What if something good happens? That is not something that is easily taught. In fact, just last night when my son was saying that he wanted to be good at everything, but he didn't feel like that he was, I am possibly not the status quo mom. I pulled up a list of billionaires who did not finish college to show him that there are really flippin' successful people out there in this lifetime. And school wasn't their thing. So if you go to school for the next 9 years and you still don't fit in, you still don't feel like you're good enough, you still don't feel like you're great at this academic thing, baby, there is 40 people right here on this list that are really, really successful and they didn't finish college. And another great tidbit to add is that they probably have ADHD, right? They probably are out of the box thinkers, which is where these great ideas like Microsoft or Apple or Facebook come from, right? So do not give up on task initiation. Do not think that your child is just a procrastinator or lazy. There's probably something else going on there, but there's so many ways to overcome that. Next up on our executive function dysfunction is organization, or as I like to call it, organized chaos. For kids with ADHD, organizing their thoughts, their belongings, their time is like herding cats on Red Bull, right? It's a constant battle. And their rooms are messy, their backpacks are black holes. But this is actually one of the executive functionings that's easiest to train because majority of the time, if the parent or guardian gets everything lined up and organized and decluttered and ready to go, it might help your child be more successful. Now, I know that is not all that it is going to take, but a good starting point for you and yours is to create a launch pad for your rocketing into the day. This will include your book bag, your shoes, your hat, your jacket, an umbrella if you need it, your lunchbox. And yes, all of this is going to take some preparation the night before, right? All of this is going to take some time and planning for you to chunk it out maybe the night before. And if you feel so inclined, you might get a lot more participation if you were to create a reward chart. And part of it is this block of time the night before getting your launch pad ready for the next day. That way, the next morning, whenever everybody's cranky, sleepy, tired, not ready to start their day, uncaffeinated, um, it's all right there. There's not a lot of planning to do, right? I even had a mom, we worked together to create a binder for her child so that each subject of his day had a different color. So that eventually he was like, oh, I'm going to math. Let's get the red folder out and hand him this homework. It takes some time, it takes some planning, and it takes some organization. But this one right here, we can help with a lot. Also, again, we live in the digital age, and not all technology is bad technology. You can set reminders on your child's phone or watch or all types of apps. You can do a whole lot of planning on this. You've definitely got this one. Working memory. And I don't feel like I am an authority in this figure, in this executive function, because my memory is not that great. But this is basically like your child's internal post it, the space where you hold information temporarily. The problem is that ADHD children have so much coming in because they're so hyper focused on something else, or something shiny comes up and they're like, no, let's move that out and put the shiny thing in. Slippery fish. It's there for 1 second and then it's gone. Whether it is remembering information or keeping track of what they're doing, their working memory is a bit of a mess. But there are lots of ways to help them in this. And there is a really cool game. Cool depending on who's playing it. It was cool to me, maybe not to him, but we're going on a picnic and we're going to take an apple. We're going on a picnic and we're going to take an apple and a B, a banana. It doesn't have to be fruit. You can mix it up because X is going to be really hard, right? But playing little games like that, building their memory, will slowly help you over time. I also highly recommend being organized for this one too, because if your child has, their life organized, it might be easier to remember things that we definitely need. But those games will also help. Another game is coming to mind because I'm thinking about Post-it, where you put a stack of Post-its together with things that you want them to do. You could also play this as a game for like scavenger hunt. You peel off one and then go do the thing. See if you can run it back through their memory, what they did at the end of that game. There's also other games on Amazon for working memory. These are just ones that we've played in our personal lives. It can be built, it can be strengthened, it can definitely be taught. Next up on the list is a good one, flexible thinking. Again, not a skill that I had until a few years ago. So, flexible thinking is all about adaptability. Think of it as mental gymnastics, bending and twisting your mind to fit new information or unexpected changes in. For the ADHD brain, it's more like doing backflips with a straitjacket on, right? We have a hard time switching gears. That doesn't come naturally, or seeing things from a different perspective. If you've ever had your child and they were like steadfast, this is the only way, and you have to show them that maybe there's another way. This is probably easiest to be strengthened through something just like that. Showing them that there's more than one right way to solve a problem. The multiplication equaling 12. 1 times 12 will get you there. 3 times 4 will get you there. 2 times 6 will get you there. There's many ways. And then once they get that concept down, you can add in real life examples. For myself, not to take it there, but I had to become flexible on politics because my teacher told me that as one side, we're creating the other. We're creating the polar opposite so that there's somebody on the other side to fight our views. And that was really hard for me, really, really hard for me. But I was like, I see that. She was like, that's your flexible thinking. That's your building there. Don't go that deep with the kids, but just let them see, are we really right? Is there not another way that we can solve this? Could we possibly begin every situation with what's called a beginner's mind, that we don't know anything and we're just going in to learn, and that our position isn't the only position? Last up, as you know, is your girl's favorite, because I have to deal with this daily. My son is an impulsive magnet. This is the ability to think before acting. Something that does not come easy to most ADHD kids, whether they are highly impulsive or not. A little voice in our head saying, go ahead and do that now, do that now. Maybe that's mental illness. I don't know, but and then you do it. And then that's that interrupting the teacher while talking, grabbing something they shouldn't. For example, last year before school started, my son jumped off the back of our couch and broke his wrist the night before school. And he was like, I shouldn't have done that. Agreed, homie. You definitely should not have done that. But here we are. This can be strengthened. I know it doesn't sound like it can, and it's very daunting. But with that fast brain example earlier of just catching it just for a second, meditation can help for this, mindfulness, sitting for a few minutes and breathing and just watching those thoughts come and go, but you can't act on them for 60 seconds, will show your child that we don't have to do everything that our crazy brain is telling us to do. We can slow down. I myself am one of those adults that I had mentioned earlier where I am trying to work on my filter. I'm not 100% perfect yet, but through meditation and mindfulness, I have definitely built up much more of a filter or executive function barrier for impulse control. Girl, we should not say that. Just shut your mouth. Just don't say nothing. So those are the 8 executive functions that are hijacked by ADHD. So let's talk about ADHD by the numbers. Did you know that about 5% of children worldwide have ADHD? In the US, that number is even higher, something around 8 to 10%. That's like 1 in 10 kids. Now, you are going to deal with the doubters in your life. You are going to deal with the naysayers who say ADHD is a made up thing. You're going to hear people say they're just being kids, they're just being a boy. And while I do agree that my son has some very stereotypical boy-like qualities, I can also see him struggling with impulse control, emotional control, self-regulation. So, and it's funny because boys are actually higher diagnosed because they usually show that impulsive, hyperactive side, as to where girls are more of the inattentive side where they cannot focus. So, girls are often misdiagnosed until there's an issue. But that doesn't mean the girls don't have it. They just fly under the radar with less hyperactivity. And here's the kicker. It's not just a childhood thing. Around 60% of kids with ADHD will carry it into adulthood. So while you are here learning about ADHD and doing all you can to strengthen their executive function, you're doing amazing, because that will strengthen their life skills, executive function, for later in life, because they're probably going to need it. before you panic, there's some good news. Yes. ADHD in kids often creates creative, energetic individuals who are full of good ideas. As you know, I showed my kid regularly. Here's the people who have ADHD that are super successful. An example from our life is my son wants to be a basketball player. He looks up to Michael Jordan. Guess what? Michael Jordan has ADHD. Guess what else? Michael Jordan used ADHD to hyper focus in on what he really wanted to be good at and became one of the greatest of all time. Out of the box thinkers, right? You are going to have the power to show your child all of these out of the box ADHD thinkers and all of the great stuff that they created and all of the innovative ideas that they have put into the world. And guess what? Your child can do that too. I had my son's pediatrician told me that my son's independent, strong will is going to serve him so well later in life. It's what all successful people have is strong will and independence. And that he was practicing those life skills on me and that I should be thankful that I get to bear that role. And I was like, you know what, sir? That did not make me feel any better, but I'm going to take your answer and I will let you know how it goes. So there is some good news. Once you understand how ADHD works, you can definitely help your child start training those skills. Yes, I know this slide on the screen says homework. And I also know that we have ADHD, so I tried to make it easy this week with something that you can listen to. So, with that said, this week we are going to listen to Dr. Russell Barkley, who is like the Yoda of ADHD. You're going to be blown away by his experience. He is a bit of a legend in the field, and he has a masterclass available that you can listen to while you are driving or whatever you do to fit it in your day. That is going to prepare you greatly for your challenge of raising a child with ADHD. I also am going to email you the executive functioning worksheet. Again, pull what you need to from it and let the rest go. Hang on to the worksheet because what you are not struggling with today, you might find yourself struggling with later. I did this presentation a little differently than I had anticipated. So if you guys have any questions, email me those questions. If you are watching this on any platform and you're like, girl, I need in on this, I'll put the link in the comments. Come join us. And y'all got this. I'll see you next week where we are going to create a badass routine that you and your children can stick to because that is the foundation for your ADHD life. You've got this, guys. Thank you so much.